What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and thank you so much for tuning in to what is going to be a video all about fall eyeshadow palettes. I wanted to dig back in my collection, not just talk about new launches that I think are perfectly timed for fall. This is actually going to be a mixture of palettes that really, I think the most recent one I have came out a couple of months back, which should, I think, still be categorized as relatively new, but with the clip that we are releasing new products now lately, I feel like it's old news at this point. Either way, we have some sort of new palettes and some really amazing throwbacks that if you have these in your collection, you should probably dig them out because they are beautiful color palettes for fall. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to talk about a palette that really you should be reaching for year-round, but I do think it has a very autumnal-themed color story to it. It is the Saharan by Juvia's Place. This is a beautiful collection of really orange-leaning shadows. You do have variety. You have a bright orange up here in the corner, some burnt oranges, bronzy oranges, a red tone copper, but then you get some really beautiful contrast with like a green gold. And then this, what you see here in the pan, at least I think from what I can see in the viewfinder, isn't doing this teal in the corner any justice. The way it really pops when you wear it on the eye provides such a beautiful contrast to the oranges in this palette. So it's just between, the rusty oranges, the kind of faded teal color in here. It's like the leaves are turning for fall in this color palette, and so I love it so much. If oranges aren't your thing though, the next palette you might really like. It is the Catrice Instabay eyeshadow palette. This is really fun because I feel like when I first saw this at face value, I kind of was like, it's not all that eye-catching, but it's really like a turned up neutral palette with a few fun quirks in it, I think. So yes, it kind of looks like your everyday brown tone palette, but you do get the antique gold here as well as the red copper shade down here. And something I didn't appreciate with this until I used it more was that you have both cool and warm brown tones in here. So you don't have to pick between the two. You don't have to go for an entirely cool palette or a warm palette. This palette gives you the mixture of both. A cool frosty white, a cool both matte brown, as well as a shimmery taupe down here. But these shades up here lean on the warmer side. And then you have these pops of interest between the gold, the copper, and then this sort of speckled robin's egg. It's not robin's egg blue, but it's like that robin's egg sort of speckled pattern in there. So you get a mixture of copper and then like pink duochromatic shift to it. So it just provides a lot of beautiful interest for a palette that, like I said, when you first look at it, might strike you as being a little bit expected or boring, but for fall, if this color palette is your jam, I think this is a fun way to spice it up for fall. Okay, now let's start dabbling back into color. This next palette pick is one that I think eases us back in slowly. It is all about those dusty rose tones that are like not quite, purple, obviously. They're not the gem tones that I think I and so many of us love in fall. It just is like a soft kiss of color to help us transition from the warm, mellow peaches from the summer into the dustier, more sultry roses in, two fall and winter months. This palette is from Ofra. It is a 5-pan called the Signature Palette Sweet Dreams, and it's so beautiful. It's great if you want to pull off a monochromatic shade because you don't vary too widely in terms of tone. It's really more of a tonal palette. So you have enough where you can get some good depth and dimension. Also, the center shade here works really amazingly as a highlighter, which I think we all know Ofra does really well. But you also have all the components here to just keep it very colorful and pigmented, but as a wash of color across the lid. So despite only having 5 colors in here, I do think this offers some versatility, especially if you're just looking for a soft pop of dusty rose color to take your look into fall. The exact same thing could actually be said for this next palette that I picked if we're talking about greens, obviously. This is the bite-sized eyeshadow palette from e.l.f. in the color palette Hot Jalapeno, which, in my opinion, is a very slept-on product in the makeup world. I do think it's relatively new. These bite-sized eyeshadows are a couple months old at this point, and I know from a lot of you guys, you say they are hit or miss, so I can't speak to the quality of all of the quads in this collection, but Hot Jalapeno is a definite winner. And okay, these last two palettes are really playing with pigment and texture. Let's first start with the Sydney Grace Chase Your Dreams palette. This launched in July, and as of the time that I make this video is still out of stock, but I know they are working on restocking a ton of stuff on their website. So this pretty little palette is a combination of those purples and plums that I already said I love for fall, but it combines them with the coppers, the red toned oranges that are also like changing fall leaves up here. So this is a very dramatic eyeshadow palette for my wear anyway. Whenever any of these colors that I mix, I do find I get a very pigmented, very dramatic eyeshadow look, so just something to be aware of. But if you are looking, if your collection is missing any of these shades, this would be a good one to get because it complements. I mean, you could pair it with, you know, some of your more neutral palettes if you just want that royal purple pop, because this is an incredibly pigmented eyeshadow called The Drive over there. But the same could be said for Gold, The Dream, or any of these coppery, red coppery shades in here as well. It's just such a beautiful pigmented palette that certainly can be worn alone, but also could be bought to add a nice colorful fall complement to the rest of the eyeshadows you have going on in your collection. And last up is the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today, and this is like the mother lode of color, and because of that, I feel like it might be overlooked as a fall palette, but when you really break the color story down here, it has those classic fall shades, but it also has some interest to it. This is the Best Life 2 palette from Violet Voss, and you can see what I mean when I talk about colors. How am I holding this? Colors and textures. On the top here, you have an entire row of glitters, but what I am focused on more when it comes to a color story is the shadows down here. So on the bottom isn't a completely matte, but you do get a really nice variety of matte shades, all of which are very colorful and pigmented, from the matte berry nature that I'm wearing mostly on my eyes today, Home, a deep matte teal, a bunch of great brown tones that you can use in your crease or to deepen up your lid, however they best work for you and your skin tone. And then you also get a bunch of pretty multichromatic shades. Like this one called Art up here is like a soft lilac with a mixture of like a teal shift to it. There is Fitness, which is over here, which is kind of similar but a little bit deeper to Art. There is Food over here, which is kind of a red-brown-esque sort of shade, and all of those just really complement the other shades you have going on in here, like the metallic coppers and bronzes you get here as well. I just think maybe it's the blue packaging, but it wasn't until I opened this up as I was going through my collection looking for palettes that I wanted to pull out for fall that I really realized I think the blue packaging says summer to me, but when I look at the shades inside, this is a fall palette for me if there ever was one. So if you have it, if you've been interested in it and you've contemplated getting it, but you feel like you're out of the season, think again. This might be a really fun palette for fall. So I have glitter everywhere. I'm not even wearing it today. That was a conscious decision because then it would get everywhere, and here we are. It's already a disaster. Okay, glitter mess aside, that and every other palette I talked about here today is awesome. I really hope you enjoyed this video, got some good tips for either pulling out palettes you already have and using them for fall, or if you were looking to add a little something to your collection for fall. I hope some of these caught your eye. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Bye.